Right, good evening. Welcome to the Azeroth Review on YouTube this time, which reminds me I ought to just send a little message on Twitch just to make sure that people remember. And remember, we're on YouTube today, just in case. And let's see how this works. Now, hiya James. So we did a test on Sunday just to see that this sort of works, and it sort of does. And it very definitely doesn't. Hi, Malinorak. So, here's the thing. It'll probably work brilliantly from your point of view, because it did on Sunday. And then afterwards, it was a complete disaster. Because what it was supposed to do... Hi, Fraser and Clefado. It was supposed to archive it, which basically meant it was supposed to show it up as a video. Now, apparently... Yes, Fraser sent me a link on how to disable certain things like gnomes. I haven't done it yet. Apparently, everyone else... I say apparently, I know everyone else can see it. Because when I logged out, I could see it. But the problem is, logged out, I can't make any changes to it. You know, tags and descriptions and stuff like that. And titles. So I had to log in to do that. But when I log in, I can't see it. So what I've done with this one tonight, it should not be archived, so it shouldn't appear in the normal video list to begin with, so that hopefully I can make some changes and then uploading it, it'll all be fine. Now, how do I pronounce it? Thete? It's like Greek. It's a Greek word, Thete, from like Homer's Odyssey, Iliad, that sort of thing. So what I did, so I contacted YouTube. You know, I sent an email or web form, and the person got back to me saying, can you give me the link, the stream link or whatever it was? And I thought, I can't get the stream link because I can't see it. And she went, oh, yeah, that's going to be a problem, but I can't help you without the stream link. I can't get the stream link because it's all buggered. So I don't even know. So I don't know what's happening. You know, nothing's easy on YouTube. They make nothing easy at all. Regarding my patron comment about delay, seems to be about the same as Twitch, so that's fine, then that's okay. Because there are different settings I could choose. So as long as it's fine, then it's fine, it's okay. So I'll still do gameplay, live gameplay on Twitch, because that's more suitable for that. I am beginning to think that it's more suitable for this as well, if YouTube can't get its act together on it. So we'll just have to see how it goes. So first couple of things I could sort of go over, I guess, are no schools. No, I'm back. I'm back for another 6 weeks. Then I'm finished. I had a week off last week, and now I'm not. I'm back. It was actually reasonably cool today at work. It was okay, but it's heated up again now. It's getting hot, so hot that I'm actually going to be very, very sensible about what I do. So in the evening, I have windows open in my bedroom and in here, just to cool it down overnight, because it gets quite cold at night, thankfully. And then in the morning, shut them again. Then when I get home, I open the bedroom one, because that's east-facing, but this is west-facing, so that has to stay shut. Can the bubble chat be turned off? What's the bubble chat? I don't know what you mean by bubble chat. I haven't got a clue. Oh, you have longer summers, do you, in the US, or do you go back earlier or something? What counts for hot over here? Anything above 0 for me. I loathe the heat. But we don't work in Fahrenheit, we work in Celsius, so we're going to have trouble. Let's see, 100 Fahrenheit, Gordon Bennett. Minus 32, 68. And then what do we do? That's about 30. No. Doesn't have to get anywhere near 30 for it to be too hot. Nowhere near. Right? 20 degrees Celsius for me is too hot. Which is, you know, I can't be doing with that. I cannot cope. So that's round about what? Anything round about going for 70 Fahrenheit, too hot. Too hot. Can't be dealing with it. Because the issue is, I keep saying this, I have this conversation every time. British houses are designed to keep heat in. Okay, they keep it in. So persuading it to leave once it's got in is not easy. Like, I have blinds, I keep those shut. The problem is, I rent this house as well. I could do some extra things if I could get rid of the blinds and actually put proper thick, keep the hell out curtains. That would be a lot better. I would do that, but I rent it, so I'm stuck. Many US school systems have nearly 3 months for summer. No, we don't. We get 6 weeks. I get 6 weeks off. That's my lot. Well, I say my lot. It's not true. Obviously, I get time off during the year as well. But yeah. Hi, Mark. So, yeah. So, anyway, should we get on to some actual World of Warcraft stuff? So, there's a couple of bits of news. I actually thought I was being clever here because Blizzard have announced that they're disabling support for 32-bit operating systems. And then they said this on the forum. They said, we recommend updating to the 64-bit version of the game before the 1st of July. And I thought, oh, are they hinting to when the pre-expansion patch is coming out? But I asked and someone has said, no, it's actually coming out on the 17th of July. So, you know, which is more usual. It is more usual for it to come out 4 weeks ahead of the actual expansion. But yes. Yes, I do have to work when I come. Yeah, I don't stop working when the students do. I know the students stopped working 3 months ago. But, so yes. And then the other thing is, of course, I'm sure it'll probably come out today as well. But the next of the webcomics, it sort of sounds like it's more interesting than the Magni one, which I didn't like at all. But also it sounds like it's just another bullshit one. It's all about family and how Illyria and Sylvanas have got these things in common. Sounds like soppy rubbish to me. It sounded interesting at first because it's all about the necklaces and stuff like that again. But then, teaching's not like real work, is my students. It's a lot of work with my students. Do you know what? I had a student today, thank God I'm not his maths teacher. This idiot of a student who said he's got a maths exam in 2 days. He's already failed it twice, so you'd think he'd be working hard for it. No, not a bit of it. I asked him a series of simple questions and he couldn't get any of them right. You know, I said, do you know, because the first thing, where most people say, oh, I can't do maths, it's because they don't have the basics. You know, like they don't know the times tables. If you don't know your times tables, that's like not knowing your alphabet for reading. It's that simple. And he didn't know his times tables. And they said, and I said, well, what can you do? He said, I can add. So I gave him 2 numbers to add up. And he couldn't add them up. He got them wrong. And I said, well, what else do you know? I said, he said, oh, Pythagoras. I've learnt Pythagoras. So I said, okay, what's Pythagoras' theorem? Apparently this threw him completely. He said, I don't know. I said, you've just said you know Pythagoras. Yeah, he says, well, I don't know what a theorem is. Well, I said, well, you haven't learnt who Pythagoras the man is. You've learnt his theorem, so just tell me what it is. He said, I don't know now. Apparently, I just threw him completely and it left his brain. So now I'm thinking to myself at this point, I'm asking him questions and I'm actually making him dumber with every question I ask. I better stop before he can't do anything in the exam. So anyway, you get these bubbles when you're on full screen. It overlays chat on top of the video. Oh, I don't know. See, I'm looking at a sort of version on here as well to see what it looks like. It looks okay for me, but then I am on full screen on a widescreen monitor, so I don't know what it looks like. Oh, I haven't got my phone with me. I can't check on my phone. All right, never mind. Anyway, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Too hot, it really is too hot. So yeah, although it's not been officially announced, I'm reliably informed that that the pre-expansion patch is on the 17th of July. And with that in mind, I have actually been carried on with my scripting, like the new tanking formula. The tanking thing. Oh, do you know what? It's doing my head in now. Do you know, over the last few weeks, I've been getting really irate at, like, deliberately misinforming videos. Now, up to now, it's been about Ret Paladins, which has done my head in. But now there's people doing videos going on about, oh, threat going back to like vanilla and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you know it's bull. And the people doing these videos know it's bullshit as well. They're just doing it to get views. I'm just thinking, God almighty, what? Anyway, never mind. So yes, I've got to do the big guide I do every 2 years, which is the Ret Paladin guide. So I've got about 6,500 words of that scripted at the moment. I need to get that finished, really, in the next couple of weeks. then I need to start recording it. I think I'm going to do it. I've got a more efficient plan for it this time. But it has to be ready to go live mid-July. Preferably a week before mid-July. Or, I don't know when's the best time to do it, actually. You need to have it coincide with when people are going to be looking. Anyway, I aim to have it finished for then anyway. And then I'll bring it out and then Blizzard will change a load of things. Oh, I've got loads of things to occupy me. Somerset is out. I've been playing Lord of the Rings Online again, bit by bit. I've got my painting. I sent off for another big set. I've got loads of Skaven to paint now. I made a mistake with one of them, though. But anyway, it doesn't matter. 1 or 2 sentence review. Worth it so far in BfA. From the playing of it, yes. From the utility, as a Mythic Raider, not so much. You know, we haven't lost any utility. We've not got worse. It's just that some people have got better. And we're not one of them. Pre-patch sounds... Well, I mean, that's standard, to be fair. It is standard for it to be about 4 weeks. That's what I was planning on anyway. It's just that then I saw this one. And it was going, we recommend you get it ready by the 1st of July. And I thought, ooh... I wonder. Whatever happened to Devotion Aura? Oh, no. I mean, that was a bad idea anyway. That would have been worse than useless. See, I'd rather have nothing than Devotion Aura. Because if we'd have had Devotion Aura, and if I'd have gone moaning about no utility, Blizzard would go, you've got Devotion Aura, it's a fantastic utility. No, it's not. So I'd rather be able to moan and them not be able to say anything. I think he meant in terms of there was going to be something, and I forget what it was going to be called, that was basically an armor aura, which is like old Devotion Aura. Oh dear, have I got to do this again? Seriously. Seriously. Gordon Bennett. Does it not get rid of the bloody comments either? Oh, it doesn't get rid of it on here. Oh, no. Well, it gets rid of it on here and not here. So already it's not as good as Twitch again. Never mind. We'll cope. If we had an aura that did versatility. Yeah, versatility would be nice. That would be okay. Yeah, actually, that's a good idea. I've not thought of that. Yeah, they could have swung that, versatility, because then it's sort of defensive without being crap. It would be a bit of offensive as well. You've gone back to playing Feral Druid. No, well, Ferals aren't going to be in a best spot either. You know, they'll be like... I mean, they weren't necessarily amazing in Legion. But at the same time, because they could attack from mid-range, they were like a ranged melee. A lot of the times when you want to limit the number of melee, it's not because there's anything wrong with the melee classes. It's mostly because it's a bit crowded. Whereas if they can go a little bit off piece, so to speak, then actually you remove that problem. Damage reduction, though, is worthless. The problem with damage reduction is unless it saves a life, it's worthless. So it's very difficult to tell whether it's even useful. Obviously, in a situation where the healers can cope fine, it's providing no benefit to you at all. If you're in a situation where a few people are dying, again, it's only going to work if it will stop them dying. It's so difficult for a flat damage reduction to justify itself, unless it's really powerful, which means a cooldown. This was going to be passive all the time, which meant it couldn't possibly be too powerful, which meant it would be just worthless. It would never save anyone's life. Or just be like super niche. You'd never plan for it. The 2 greater blessings. Oh, well, greater blessing of wisdom is useful. It's only useful for one person. I mean, you could argue by extension useful for the whole raid because you're going to put it on a healer. Greater blessing of kings is not really very useful. I mean, if you have someone whose job it is to like soak. I mean, the classic case for using greater blessing of kings would be, let's say you could use it on a rogue during, say, Fallen Avatar, or Gul'dan if they were soaking the souls. You'd put it on them. You wouldn't put it on them because they would appreciate it. It'd be fantastic. But it would at least do something. It'd be as good to put it on them as anyone else. So there is info on the class buffs, yes. There are no more class buffs. The abilities that you've got now in the beta, the class buffs in the beta right now, that's it. That's it. At the very least, until, well, you know, they'd never rule out doing something during the expansion. It used to be the case that however a class went during, the start of an expansion, that was it until the next expansion. They wouldn't really. They might tune a few abilities, but they wouldn't change any abilities. Now they altered that philosophy in Legion. They did change a few abilities in Legion, but I wouldn't put your hopes on it. So it is possible that later on. But for launch, yeah, that the class buffs that are in now, that's it. That's the lot. There's no more. How would I implement Greater Blessing and Might as we put back in the game? Exactly as Sol Sacra suggested, which is that it's a raid-wide aura. Everyone does 3% extra damage as holy. It doesn't count for the Paladin's damage. That was just crazy. And it benefits everyone. So you've got no one fighting over it. Do I think BfA would be bad? That's actually a really good question. I keep asking myself. The answer is I actually don't know. The problem is you look at the expansion and on the face of it, there are a number of new features in it. You've got Azeroth traits, although it's just a direct replacement for artifacts, works differently and therefore can be classed as a new feature. The Island Expeditions is a new feature. Warfronts is a new feature. And the thing is, I don't think I've really heard anyone say anything really bad about any of those new features. But at the same time, no one's really excited about them either. That's the problem. So it's got new things in the game, but no one's getting really excited about any of them. If you just have to scan. I've said this before. If you look at like the big YouTubers and you look at the videos they're doing, they're not really hyping anything. The only thing they're ever hyping is storyline. That's it. The plot line. That's all. And most of that, because, we only know a small amount of it, most of that's just fiction anyway. It's like speculation, isn't it? It's what might be, what may be. And you'd expect that as well. You would expect those videos to be, because, speculation is fun. But there's none of the other stuff. You don't get any of it. There's not hyping anything. Actually quite happy to have an expansion with a little less to do. That's the thing though. Is it a little less to do? Or is it more to do? Because I'm looking at it and I'm thinking it might be the case that with the Azeroth gear, they realised that it was too much grind with Legion. So maybe they'll lessen the grind. So maybe I won't have to do stupid numbers of Mythic plus dungeons, as well as islands and doing a warfront wherever I can. Maybe they'll and all the world quests as well. Because those world quests, it's going to be a lot harder to do world quests in BfA than it was in Legion. Because in Legion, by the time you dinged and you got access to your world quests, you had a load of flight points already discovered. Plus, the only zone that was really awkward to get around was High Mountain. The rest were fairly okay. In BfA, the zones are inherently... The terrain is much more of an obstacle for you in all the zones. Voldun's fairly flat. That's not too bad, actually. But most of the others are a bit of an arsehole to get around. Plus, because 3 of the zones are for the opposite faction, you don't have a load of flight points ready-made, and you can't even discover all of them. There's only so many you can even get. Some of the flight points as well are unlocked by quests. So it's not a case of just going there and going click on Flight Master. You have to do a quest to unlock them. So, it could be much worse than Legion, or it could be better. Again, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I think we will know by the time it goes live, but at the moment, I don't know. Storm Song is nice and open. Well, I'm not sure. It is nice. I like the zone. But, there's still... It's not easy just to ride around because there's usually a load of mobs in the way of certain points and things like that. I mean, it's not the worst... it's not as bad as, say... which is the one with the mountains? Drustvar. That's probably the worst one to get around. At the moment... I mean, some of it will be a lot easier when it goes live. At the moment, some of it is harder than it needs to be because just saying we're on 99 viewers. I need one more person. We're into triple figures. With the water, because they took my water strider away. Taken my water strider. Hey, 103. Yeah, once we've got the water strider back, some of it will be a little bit easier. So getting around the islands will be then a lot more straightforward. But, you know, moving around Suramar City was tedious. But there were loads of... You could at least unlock, like, teleports. If you did the quests, then you got portals out of it. That's not going to happen until we get flying, which, of course, is not going to happen for, what, about 6 months? Something like that. I don't know. I can't remember what it was now. Well, there isn't a dedicated max level zone like Suramar, but the other... When you get to level cap, you do still have to do zones that you couldn't access until level cap. It's just that it's the opposite ones. My chat is going nuts, is it? We are, well, there's certainly more viewers, although some people have just disappeared. I'm back down into double figures, sad times. The comics are now out, are they? Okay, well. That's annoying. If it had come out half an hour early, I would have been okay. All I've been able to read is like the first page, which I've got a little snippet of down here. But anyway, never mind. On the Mythic Plus topic, we'll say, well, where's it gone? Oh no, help. It'd be great if AP isn't the motivator for Mythic Plus. Well, they said Islands was going to be the thing for AP. At the same time, they also implied diminishing returns, because they said you'll want to do 2 or 3 islands, after which it won't be as worthwhile. Which suggests to me maybe diminishing returns. I don't think, you know, Mythic Plus... I mean, the gear to begin with will be a huge motivating factor, so they don't need to give you a load of AP as well. But it probably should. I mean, what I always said about the Mythic Plus dungeons in Legion is they shouldn't give you AP in the dungeon itself. You know, when they put AP in the weekly cache, they should have just left it at that. So that way it encourages you to push higher keys. It doesn't encourage you to do lots of them. That's how it should be. Any news on when the pre-patch is going up on the PTR? I don't know when it's going up on the PTR now. That's ironic, isn't it? I sort of know when it's coming out. I just don't know when it's going on the PTR. It doesn't look like they want to give it very long, does it? WoW Forum just posted a Mythic raiding feedback forum post. Yeah. I ain't got time to read whole comments. You'd rather leave AP out of the dungeons. I don't see a problem with giving you AP for doing a higher level one. That's okay. I'm okay with that. Because then I just have to do 1 or 2. I wouldn't mind if they removed it completely. I just don't see them removing it completely. Because if they did, it'd be like the only form of content where you can't get any, apart from, I suppose, raiding. I don't know how raiding's going to work, actually. Hi, Isabel. Do you know how long after the launch of BfA we'll be able to do Mythic Plus raids? I imagine it's going to be the same as it was before. So how was it before? So I think in Legion, correct me if I'm wrong, we had 1 week where you could only do normal and heroic dungeons. Then in the second week, you could do basic Mythic dungeons. Then in the third week, normal and heroic dungeons came out and you could do Mythic Plus dungeons. I think that's how it works there. Now I'm hoping that they don't bring out the raid as quickly as they've done in the past, because I think it's too quick. And I think Blizzard hinted that they agreed it was too quick as well. So it's possible that the raid will not come out in week 3, maybe week 4. But I still think the dungeon schedule will be similar. You know, it would make sense for it to give you a clear week, then 1 week where you can just do Mythic, and then the third week, Mythic Plus. Preach made a good point about quest emissaries, that they might die out faster without the legendary bait to keep the boxes. Possibly. It all depends on how much we need that Azerite. And also it depends how much Azeroth they give. At the moment they give quite a lot. But yes, they could die out. That's certainly true. The biggest draw of doing them, I think, in Legion. See, the Order resources were a thing, but they've toned that down as well. They've toned the missions down. So, you know, I can absolutely see that being the case. But I wouldn't mind that, because I just think it's artificial world quests. I don't mind the concept of them, but they're artificially making us do them. Streaming on YouTube and not Twitch. I'm trying it out just for the discussion videos and keeping gameplay on Twitch at the moment. We shall see what happens long term. Giving it a trial. But at the moment, YouTube are not encouraging me because they're making things difficult. Although I think it's all right from your point of view. They're just giving me a hard time, not you. Would be nice if we got a small amount of AP from everything, so we weren't compelled. Well, having a small amount from everything means you are compelled, because that's the only reason you do certain content. Like, I wouldn't do world quests at all if they weren't giving me something useful. I don't enjoy doing world quests. They're tedious. It's a chore. Do I believe that more people will be going for mythic raids now that some BiS will come from professions? I don't think there'll be BiS for very long. The problem with the profession stuff is, to make those pieces, you need things that drop from raids as well. You know, in Legion, a lot of people did mythic raiding. There was a lot of people did mythic raiding, and I think we can put that down to Titan Forging. The fact that people were able to, from just doing heroic, get better gear than is rewarded from even mythic bosses, which meant that you could do the mythic bosses overgeared, and therefore you didn't have to be as tight on the mechanics. So I think there were a lot more people. Well, I know there were a lot more people who did mythic raiding in Legion than WoD, but I think the reason was Titan Forging. Now, whether there's anything that increases it still further in BfA, I don't know. I don't see anything on the horizon. But then again, I didn't really foresee the effect of Titan Forging either, because I didn't expect Titan Forging to have such a high drop rate as it did. That was a surprise to a lot of people, I think. YouTube is clearly not gnomish engineering, it hardly works. No, the fact it hasn't blown up yet is what makes it not gnomish engineering. The mats drop from normal. Yes, they do. Well, at least they did when I was testing. The only raids I've tested so far are normal, and I had them drop in normal. I think it was guaranteed as well. I think they dropped off every boss. So, yeah. Which is a bit like TBC, where you could get the nether vortices, you know, to craft the weapons, which were good. You know, my Lionheart Executioner, I actually used that. I used that to kill Archimonde with. There were more people playing in Legion than WoD. Well, maybe, but there was a higher proportion of people mythic raiding in Legion than in WoD, when you looked at the proportion of people who had certain achievements. It's the problem with removing higher item level gear from Mythic Plus. It becomes harder to recruit those ready for mythic raiding. They have come out. You can't have Mythic Plus as a parallel system. Alternative, yes. It can't reward gear. I mean, in theory, it can if it Titan Forges, but you know, in terms of someone who just does Mythic Plus dungeons and someone who just does mythic raiding, the one who just does mythic raiding has got to have the most gear. Blizzard said themselves, it's the most difficult content to organize. It's the premier content, so it has to give the better rewards, because that's how Blizzard think. They think only in terms of gear rewards. That's how they incentivize us to do everything. Just dangle the gear, which, you know, I have my views on that, but that's where it is. You read somewhere that the melee damage was increased and less trivial than in Legion. I don't know where you've read that. Melee damage is not trivial in Legion at all. It's extremely high. In fact, because if you look at logs of fights where melee are not hampered by lots of movement, melee DPS tend to do more damage than ranged DPS on average. But the other thing is, no one will be able to say anything about the relative theoretical damage values of any class because tuning has only just started, and we haven't seen any builds where tuning has taken place yet, and we're not likely to for a few weeks. The auto attack, the relative amount of your damage that will come from auto attacks has gone up. Yes. But a part of that is because they've deliberately increased downtime. So it's not so much we're doing more auto attack damage. It's, you know, there's also, from the other end of it, we're doing less yellow damage. Oh, you mean those sort of melee things? Okay, yeah, I get what you mean then. So yeah, auto attack damage as a relative proportion of overall damage will increase, yes. At the same time, though, as I say, tuning hasn't happened. So how it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be in the same proportion to how it is at the moment. Do the Titan Forge stuff still have noticeable drop rate in BfA? I don't know. That I can't tell. But they've said they're toning it down a bit. At the same time, if they tone it down too much, there's no point in even having Titan Forging. They've not put Titan Forging in the game so that we can get really high item level pieces. It's like gambling with Titan Forge. They want us to feel that we have a chance, you know. It's like they want us to feel that we've got a chance, but they don't actually want us swimming in Titan Forge gear. It's quite a difficult balance to make because they're sort of mutually exclusive, those two things. You wonder if health pools and damage will be ridiculous by the end of BfA. They'll inevitably go up quite a lot, because how can they not? You know, each tier, you have 4 difficulties of it. So, I mean, you've got normal dungeons. When you cap, you've got normal dungeons and heroic dungeons. Stuff from world quests. Then you've got mythic dungeons. Then you've got, like, LFR, normal, heroic, and mythic raiding. And then each tier, you've got those 4 extra difficulties, which have to provide a jump up in item level. So by the end of it, yeah, they're going to have, whether it's ridiculous levels, I suppose it depends on your definition, but it'll have to be, you know, much higher. You found Titan Forge and a nice carrot. You found it, well, a nice carrot to be negative. Got a hugely Thunderforged item early in Nighthold and couldn't replace it for 10 months. Well, it does throw your plans into something of into the mixer, because I wasn't planning on using the tier chest, and then I got a 985 tier chest. In fact, I was actually wanting as soon as possible to switch to using the, you know, the ideal legendaries to have in Bisque gear for a Ret Paladin at the moment is using the legendary cloak. Unfortunately, I got a 980 tier cloak, so it was quite some time before I was able to get rid of it. In fact, it's only in fact, it was after I finished Progress. I couldn't even wear what was my Bisque set until after I'd finished Progress. Started Legion at 300k. Did we? No, more than that, surely. Oh, hold on. What are you talking about here? You're talking about DPS. Not health. I can't remember. Oh, yeah, you must be talking about DPS, yeah. Yeah, well, proportionally, I would think it'll go up by the same amount. You know, obviously, we're going to start off on a much lower amount. I mean, it's one of these things. Every few expansions, if they don't want the massive numbers, they're going to have to keep doing it. The only difference is, I suppose, this time, you know, there might not be another few expansions. We don't know how many expansions there are to go. It's a bit like me in real life, isn't it? You know, I know that there's less far to go till the end than there has been in the past. You know, once you pass that middle point, it's like you don't know how long you've got, but you know it's less than you've already had. Oh, I'm not complaining about wearing the chest. I'm just saying that my original plan was, this is my set. Obviously, I knew it would get thrown out by Titan Forge. But, you know, this was the plan. And then that's why it's silly people asking for Bisque lists. Because as soon as you get a Titan Forge piece, because that's actually my answer. If anyone asks me what's BIS, I say whatever Titan forges, because that's usually the case. What's my take on the new way of leveling professions? It's obviously quite useful, especially the further up you get. You don't really want to be starting from scratch when all you want to do is craft stuff for the latest. Because the way professions work in World of Warcraft, if you only want to craft the latest expansion stuff, you might as well have a separate tier for each expansion, yeah. Is the combat alchemy and herbalism useful? It will be extremely useful. I'm not even thinking about the trinket. It will be very useful to start with, as it always is, because you'll be able to make a stupid amount of gold from it. Because people, and also because people will give you their mats, like to make their flasks, you're also, without having to spend a load of money, going to get rank 3 quite quickly. And then once you've got rank 3, everyone wants your stuff. So it's a race as an alchemist to be the first to get rank 3 on the useful things. Any other classes I like the look at? I like a few of them, but not enough. None of them would approach rare. The Demonology Warlock is quite fun. People told me it was. It is. That's quite nice. Demon Hunter, Havoc Demon Hunter was a lot of fun as well. I wasn't keen on the Warrior. You know. I played mostly Arms. I did try a little bit of Fury. Wasn't keen on that. Hunter, Beastmaster Hunter's fine. I wasn't so keen on Marksman, but then I didn't really use that there. Blood DK was good. I did that in Dungeons. That's usually fairly fine as well. You notice they still haven't updated the animation for Hammer of Wrath. They may not do. You know, given what they did to Templar's Verdict, I was rather hoping they'd stop coming with new animations. I don't really want new animations if that's the best they can do. Rank 3 in Alchemy is from rep vendors. Oh, is it? Oh, okay. I didn't notice that then. I need to get some proper testing done on professions. I'm less bothered about animations anyway, because I zoom quite far out, so I don't even see them. But, you know, to the Templar's Verdict, the upside down wings, that surely to goodness has got to be placeholder. I can't believe they'd actually do that. And it might be placeholder. I think they did something similar with Shadow Bolt for Warlocks. Even though the new Shadow Bolt looks different, but it doesn't exactly look exciting. Sometimes I don't know why they bother. I think they just change animations for the sake of it. Because if you don't really notice it, I don't see what the point is. The GCD changes were made to just show off new animations. The GCD changes were made when someone got drunk, and they've been messing about with it ever since. Thank you, Dan. You like the old talent that made Final Verdict? Yes, a lot of people did. We were sort of hoping for something similar. At the same time, the talents that we've got now are quite alright. The damage talents, I think, are all good. Some of the utility talents I'm a bit less keen on. But they are what they are. They're not going to get changed now. Or I don't think they are. Certainly, I don't think any of... Well, no, I don't. I know those ones aren't. Because they weren't even talking about those. I don't like Unbreakable Spirit. I don't need my cooldowns reducing by a piss poor amount when they're already too high baseline. If they're going to reduce them, they should have at least reduced them to a sensible value. Divine Purpose. No, there's no news on that yet. It might well be that it doesn't need it. If they just nerf Inquisition, then it might be fine. But anyway, we'll just have to see. You feel like the new Fury Warrior is a big finger to the GCD changes. Well, the thing is with Fury, because that was one of the ones that was the most screwed over by the changes, it was one that they had to make massive changes to compensate. So it wouldn't surprise me that Fury feels better with it, because it had to be redesigned with that in mind. That's unfortunately the case. I mean, it's the same thing with these people keep going on about these threat changes. I mean, first of all, as I say, the maths just doesn't add up to it being a problem. But the other thing is, tuning, they made this announcement before tuning started. So, if people are going to be saying, oh, well, but if this mage suddenly uses AoE, it'll pull threat off the tank. To which the Blizzard designers will just go, well, we'll make the tanks do more AoE damage then. That's not difficult. Frost, yes, I've heard. I haven't actually tried Frost DK. I have heard it's not looking too clever from actual DK players. But they have at least Unholy. I can perfectly well understand, that they might not want to play Unholy because, if I was, well, I sometimes have a DK. I would much prefer to be Frost because dual wield. I think dual wield is inherently more stylish. In Baldur's Gate, when in Baldur's Gate, when I make my party, I have 2 paladins because, paladins. But one of them always dual wields. My main one dual wields because dual wielding is awesome. I will always dual wield if I have the opportunity to do so on any class that has the thing. In Lord of the Rings Online, I have a champion. The champion can either dual wield or use a two-hander. I use dual wield. It's inherently more stylish. So, yes, I can well understand a DK, not particularly one. You dual wield Templar here. I say, well, I've ended up going Magic on mine, which was a bit of a mistake. Well, it wasn't a mistake, but I need to level another. I keep leveling characters and then deleting them. It's back to vanilla WoW all over again. I used to do this in vanilla. I had my Paladin, of course, but then every time I tried to create an alt, I would level it and then get bored with it and delete it. Sometimes I would just not like its face and delete it. I got a warrior to like level 50 something and deleted it. So the only other character I got to level 60 in vanilla, and it was quite late on, it was when Anchorage was out, was a mage. And the only reason I got that to level 60 is because it leveled so quickly. It got to level 60 before I got bored of it. And then it was level 60. I thought, well, I might as well leave it now. I did some 20-man raiding on it and some dungeons. It was all right. Do I like the idea of a Ret Paladin dual wielding? Absolutely. Oh, yeah, I'd dual wield at a drop of a hat if I could. It's just inherent. Only if I could put the swords on my back, but I've got transmog for that. I've got swords that go on the back. I know it's not practical. You couldn't realistically have a sword on your back and draw from there, but I don't care. Yeah, I would dual wield. Yes, I would. I could have the lightsabers. Dual wielding lightsabers if I wanted to. Proper warrior of the light then. Hybrid builds are apparently more viable now. Half magic, half stamina. Okay. I've never heard of any of those. You don't think dual wielding suits the WoW theme of paladins? Well, maybe not. But it's not my fault. They've got no style. Do I dual wield my paladin in D&D? I did, yes. I can't say I do. It's present tense because I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons for many years. But yes, it's more stylish. It's just inherently more stylish. I mean, like I say, I do have one that uses a two-hander in Baldur's Gate 2 as well. Because you've got 2 paladins. And also Carsamir, which is like, one of the best weapons in the game as a two-hander. So obviously you need that. Do I ever watch Critical Role? No. I don't really watch stuff. I tend to do stuff rather than watch stuff. How about Warfront plate armor sets? Do I like the theme? I like the Alliance theme. Problem is, as time goes on, I'm much less likely to be Alliance in the next expansion. This is the problem. So I'm going to have a real problem trying to... Although the irony is, I suppose if I went Horde and was Blood Elf, then the PvP set, which doesn't look as good, nonetheless might suit the red scythe I got better. So maybe I'll be able to use that and just annoy people. You'd love to see a ranged cleric spec with mace and shield. I'd love that to be a paladin in WoW. I want a ranged spec. Shockadin spec, I've got no problem with that. I'll play Shockadin spec on the fights where melee are no use. Would two-handed Demon Hunter be like Darth Maul? Yeah, it would, jumping around like an idiot, yes. Do I believe the guild imbalance will slightly revert now with the Hall of Fame edition? No. There are very few, that Hall of Fame thing, unless they expand it, as it is at the moment where it's simply a top 100, there's very few guilds that will be swayed by that. Because any guild that's confident it will finish in the top 100 horde, so they're not going to move anywhere. So you're talking specifically about guilds that can't make the top 100 horde, but they are confident, and they've got to be confident they can make the top 100 alliance. Bearing in mind, there is still this perception, and it's not completely untrue either if you're really min-maxing. And if you're going to finish top 100, you're min-maxing to a reasonable degree. The horde have the better racial, so you'll be straight away thinking to yourself, if we go alliance, we're going to find it harder to recruit, and our racials are not going to be on balance quite as good. So you're going to think it's going to be tougher as well. Plus there's the expense of moving. There's not many people going to choose to play alliance just because of that. Now, if they expanded it to include more tiers of rank, that might have an impact. Gnomes are not banned yet, no. I will have to look up how, because nowhere near it enough people are getting my Where's the Mailbox thing each week. The first week, everyone got it. I made it too easy. Ever since then, either people aren't interested or, you know, I've made it too difficult, but stuff. People should get out more and learn their mailboxes. Is it top 100 EU, US? It's just called top 100 world for Alliance and Horde. Now, whether that includes the Chinese, you know, China-based servers, Korean-based servers, I don't know. I wouldn't have thought so. I would have thought they'd have their own thing. So I imagine it's just like Western world servers. But no, it's not separate for EU and NA. So Brandon, so in your case, you'd be about 55th Alliance. In theory, you could gain. However, you know, in your guild, first of all, you'd have to get everyone to agree because you've got to move. Everyone's going to have the expense of moving. It is not a cheap thing. Even for one character, it's not cheap. For two characters, it's going to cost you about an annual subscription. And if you want to transfer more characters, that's going to get ever more expensive. People, if they are used to playing with friends who are in other guilds, say, for Mythic Plus, stuff like that, that's going to be right out. You're going to have a harder time recruiting. And you're also going to, you know, your racials are going to be a bit different. That might cause an issue as well. I can block gnome in here. I just haven't learnt how yet. I will. Fraser, as I say, sent me a link. I'm going to check that out later. You think warriors should have rifleman specs? They don't need another spec. I mean, I did talk. I didn't actually do a video in the end, did I? We were talking about it before, weren't we? Maybe every class should have a ranged spec. Every class should have a ranged DPS spec, and then we'd be all fine. But they don't need one. They're already going to get their place. They've got great movement. They've got good defensives. Raid-wide defensives as well, rallying cry. They've got the attack power buff. You know. They've got it on. The only problem for warriors will be that in a lot of rosters they might find themselves as maybe the only plate user and almost certain, well, not almost certainly, that's a lie, but also potentially the only user of two-handed weapons, which means, or two-handed strength weapons, which means that they're not going to be able to do a lot of trading of the personal loot. Any news on the pre-patch? Yes, 17th of July. That's all I know. Just change melee specs into range, like reverse. Yeah, well, that's what I think. I mean, at worst case scenario, that's what they could do. Obviously, they'd have to give cast times to the abilities, you know, to stop you just jumping around like a Beastmaster Hunter. But that's fine. That's okay. Because that's what Shockadin could be. They could just have it the same abilities, put a cast time on them, give them different icons, different names, and like light effects going off. Job done. It's not going to take any extra effort. A little bit of tuning, you know, to get the cast right. That's all. They ruin survival. I don't know. To be fair to Blizzard, they had to do something. Because before Legion, all of the hunter specs were the same. You know, they were almost exactly identical. You know, you could have the same, you know, equivalent abilities and equivalent places. Your rotation didn't change very much between them. You know, it's all very, very similar. You enjoy it on YouTube because of the notification. Well, there's a lot of people must agree with you. So from that point of view, yes, it's much more useful being on YouTube. Your guild is Alliance and you have 5 rets. Please tell me you're a heroic guild. A Shockadin would be a great way to reintroduce exorcism. Yes, it would. Because they could absolutely just bring execute. I mean, Blade of Justice, exorcism. Job done. And Divine Storm artifact trait baseline shoot the storms at range. Yeah. Longer range as well. Oh, imagine if it was like, what's that priest spell? I don't even know if they still have it. I haven't played priest this expansion. The Nova thing that I used to get into trouble with. Because I would occasionally use it and pull things. Because it's huge. What's that called? Could have something like that. It just spreads out. It's massive. I'll read it later, Fraser. They can have their fun tonight. He who laughs hardest. Do I think top tier guilds will still split run? Yes. Yeah, they will. But they'll also probably do it with loading up people that share... oh, God, I can't think of names now. Loot tables. Obviously, you're not going to have your DK tank running with a load of rogues and boomkins. You'll have them running with as many plate users and stuff like that as you can. So, although... So it could actually... Something like this could actually help the top guilds. Because split raiding will be less efficient, fewer guilds will do it. So the relative gap between the top guilds and those behind them will increase. So it'll work against the, you know, Blizzard's moaning that they did about the fact that the top guilds outgeared all the content. So they, you know, they had to tune it too high. I don't really see how they're going to stop that by doing this. It was a talent, yes. I just can't remember what it was. Oh, Halo, was it? Yeah, it wasn't... No, not the Nova. That was quite a short range. It had a huge range. Because I would occasionally use it to... I think I did it as a... It was a healing one. And I think I used to use it to heal people up before a pull. But occasionally I pulled the boss with it. Because it's, you know, had such a large range. It was mostly an LFR. It was all fine. If standing on their heads daily for 5 minutes gave them advantage, the higher skills will do it. Of course, indeed. You know, I don't know if anyone watched it. Actually, there was someone from Method talking about their experiences on Kill Jaden. Actually, and again, when you watch that and you listen to their views on it, obviously, completely different world to everyone that. Well, not everyone that followed them, but most other guilds that followed them. Did they really need to tune it because people outgeared it? Yes. That's why they said that. Because otherwise the top guilds would just be knocking it all over. I don't know that that would have applied to Croesus, though. Because you've got to bear in mind the top guilds nobbled him quickly anyway. You know, we're not talking about Croesus or those bosses. They don't care if the top guilds go through those quickly because they know they're going to anyway. We're talking more about the more difficult bosses. The last few. The last 3 usually. You heard top guilds are planning on running 3 to 4 the same class and just take the one that gets the most gear. Well, that's what they did in Legion. That's no surprise at all. They did that in Legion. Again, the one that got the best legendaries would be the one they'd main. So the same principle will still apply here. Would be interesting if they could make it so you could use one hand and shield as ret. Purely as cosmetic, no. Not unless it's going to be for Shockadin reasons. You know, it's supposed to be a hard-hitting spec. You don't really get that with the sword and shield. In my view, should Blizzard make mythic bosses more of a gear check like they used to be? No. Because it's just too efficient to gear up these days. It used to take a long time to gear up. So putting gear check bosses into raids sort of made sense to string it all out. But now it doesn't. You know, people have the view now that no boss should be impossible to kill in the gear you would naturally have when you came to it. So no, the player base has changed. Its attitudes towards things have changed. People don't want to grind gear anymore. What do I do for gold? I go to the WoW store first of all, and I buy a token, and then I go to the auction house and I sell the token. But alchemy and herbalism will of course be good at the launch of Legion, inevitably. Inscription will also be fairly useful because you can sell the things that give you a boost to reputation for that day. Are they forcing personal loot once the pre-patch goes live? Yeah, no. When the pre-patch goes live, all of the gameplay features... Basically, the pre-patch is the next expansion. It's just everything apart from the content. They just don't unlock the content. But the game is live at that point. So all the BfA game features are live. So that means forced personal loot, you know... Legendary tab, I hope, except that's not in yet, so I'm beginning to lose hope in that one. You know, the new talents, the new abilities, all of it suddenly goes live. Seems like Method is leaning more and more towards Mythic Plus. Why? They do all... Remember, Method isn't just a guild. Method is a business. So they want to get their fingers in as many pies as possible. But the Method, the raiding guild, are still going to be Method, the raiding guild. But Method, the brand, obviously, yeah, they're going to go a lot into where the money is. And Mythic Plus has more money in it than raiding. I mean, something that surprised me about Method, you can see recently they've made a push on actually releasing videos. You know, actually discussion videos. They've not really... And I can't understand why. They've never really done much of that in the past. They seem to be making a more of a concerted effort to do that now. And I don't know why they wouldn't, because it's obvious. I mean, you know, everyone in Method's got an opinion about something. They should just ask all their raiders, what would you like to talk about? Right, do a video on it. And you've got all these people that can just do it. You can produce loads of content. You've got a whole sweatshop of people that at the moment have got very little to do. Because, you know, they don't have to get work. Well, they obviously need to do a lot of testing when... raid tests are available on the beta forums, but apart from that, they're nothing. They're on holiday. It's their holiday time. Put them to work. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, Blizzard can't really tune it to the very top guilds. You know, quite frankly, if the top guilds are going to kill it in... They obviously can't kill it in one day because then you give the North American realms an advantage, which is not fair. So it sort of has to last into the second reset. Otherwise, you know, too much advantage. Wonder if they'll eventually remove the excessive world PvP incentives. Well, I don't think they're all that great. I'm not tempted by them. Maybe for leveling, only because I know I won't have to do any PvP. But... you know, with PvP, because you're going to have roving death groups going around. You are going to have death squads wandering around. I just don't see it being worthwhile for anyone who's just questing on their own. Because people are probably thinking it's going to be like a PvP server now, where you can go out and quest on your own. Yeah, every now and then someone will gank you, but most of the time people just leave you to it. Everyone's fine. I don't think that will be the attitude with this. I think you will get people... going around with groups. Top guilds ask for harder content, then they go and... Well, yeah, of course they go on to break them. They clever use of game mechanics. They don't look to break the mechanics. They sort of do. Because you've got to remember, Blizzard are watching them like hawks when they go. They, you know, they can't exploit, otherwise they'll be banned. Sometimes they'll be banned even when they don't really exploit. When the pre-patch hits, basically the Antorus raid is over. What are we to do then? Well, they've got the new content to do, so there's the different scenarios to do, which presumably The way it looks is it'll come out a week at a time. So you've got like the Horde attack on Night Elf lands, and then we've got the Alliance attack on Lordaeron. All of that's going to be woven in there. Am I still thinking about going Horde? I need to join a suitable raiding guild, one that doesn't have me doing progress all the way through the expansion. And I also really don't want to do 4 days either now. I think I need to do 3. Because just in case we do have a load of extra stuff to do, I can't be doing what I was doing in Legion. It's just too much. So, yeah. And that's almost certainly going to be Horde. I mean, I have actually been approached by a guild, which is well, I've been approached by a few, but one which is a Horde guild, which is a decent one. And I put my application in, but that doesn't. I don't know. I haven't heard anything back about that yet. But there was an Alliance guild interested as well, but they didn't seem hugely interested. So I don't know. They weren't making much of a case for themselves. Classic isn't going to be classic because they will. Hold on. They will try to balance it and. There are a lot of pitfalls to Classic, but what I would say is the main reason why... Oh, okay. Speak of the devil. The main reason why Classic is Classic is... or won't be Classic, sorry, is because there will be add-ons. There'll be different add-ons. People will have come up with different add-ons. And... Sorry, I better just respond to something. There'll also be more guides. What else would be different? That would be enough, wouldn't it? The fact that people would know much better how to play the class, how the stats work, how the gearing works, how the bosses work for dungeons and raids. And you'd have... they can't make the add-ons we have now because, obviously, different rules then for add-ons, but you'd still be able to make better add-ons than we had at the time. Any more news on Paladins getting those last few ability tweaks? It's not completely impossible, but I wouldn't hold out much hope at this point. Because the abilities are supposed to be done now. We don't necessarily have the build where it is done, but... I think it is done. It's supposed to have been done anyway. The deadline was last week for the designers because they're supposed to be onto tuning now. Now, whether they were given an extension to cope with all this GCD nonsense, I don't know. But, they can never bring Classic back for me. Well, no, the same thing for me. It won't be the same because part of the experience was that for me, not only was it brand new, but it was, for me, my first experience of an MMO. So everything about it was new. That's not to say I wouldn't play it a bit, but I wouldn't go full on into it. I'd play it a bit just for nostalgia. It would be nostalgia for me. Because I used to like that style, well, I still do like that style of questing, which is gone now from the game. It would be much less nostalgic if I was able to still do those old quests now, but I can't. You showed your guild my video on PL and armor types. They thought I was totally correct. Well, of course I'm always correct. I even had a student ask me today, how come I know everything? I did have to stress that I don't know everything. I did have to say, for example, I have no idea how they ended up in my class. Is Classic sustainable, though, long term? I don't know how they're planning to do it. I'd be really curious. I'd really love to ask their developer team, which surely must be in place now, a load of questions. Because I want to know, because what's the plan? Are they going to bring it out with, like, no raids for a month or so? Then are they going to bring out, like, Molten Core and UBRS, maybe? And are they going to bring it out step by step? So that then maybe after a 2-year cycle, you've got everything? Or is it all just going to be there and do it in your own time and it's just there permanently? If they do bring it out a bit at a time, And, you know, after 2 years, again, how long do they leave it? Are they going to reset the server? That wouldn't sound very fair to me. Or are they going to bring out a new server and start again? I don't know. I don't know what their long-term plan for it is. Ultimately, this has come about because a lot of people want it. And it would be, I would just think, from a business point of view, stupid not to acquiesce. But at the same time, I also get a feeling that a lot of the players that want Classic, when it comes down to it, they won't all agree on exactly what they want. So, and so it's a minefield for them. It is a minefield. You saw someone asking for new raids for Classic. Well, that's not. They've already said Classic will be Classic. They're not gonna, you know, they're not gonna put anything in that wasn't in for Classic. Not sure on statistics, but there can't be that many original vanilla quests left in the... There's none. There are no vanilla quests left in the original game. Left in the game as we have now. You know, so there's loads of stuff. You know, part of the reason my bank is clogged, it's clogged with items you can't get anymore. Debuff limit of bosses. Oh yeah, well that's another thing. Yeah, you can't get the WoW. You can't get the vanilla WoW experience without a computer with 1 meg of RAM. You know, it's not happening. Falling into the Ironforge lag pit every time you try to cross. I hope in Classic you can still kite a dragon to Stormwind. Or from, where was it? From Blasted Lands. Well, this is it. I have a shield from Nax, which has never, the skin has never been used since. It wasn't even used when they brought out Wrath Nax. And it's not an amazing shield. For vanilla, I would say it was pretty nice. I like the look of it in vanilla because most shields are pretty boring in vanilla. You know, so I was quite proud of myself because I had the 2 best looking shields for a paladin at any rate, which is the Dragon Scale Protector, which all right was also for shamans, but they were Horde. But it suited a paladin better, so I had that. And there were people in, Death's Bargain. There were people in the top guilds on the server when I got that going, I still haven't got that, what the hell? You know, because, you know, I saved up all my DKP. So when it dropped, I got it. And then Death's Bargain as well, I got in Nax. Which again had a very distinctive look, but it has never been used since. The icon for it has. The icon has been used in the new Scholarmance for a particular item, but the actual skin of the gear hasn't. So it's unique. So obviously I have to keep that. Well, I don't have to keep it anymore, I suppose, because I've got it saved into my transmog thing. You have to work together on Classic. Yes, you have to talk to each other in dungeons. There needs to be some form of communication. Remember when they released a new feature, the keyring? I do. I remember what it was like not having the keyring and going to a dungeon, let's say Diamall West, and someone going, yeah, I've got the crescent key. Then getting there and going, oh, it's probably in my bank. And Diamall, if you're a Alliance player, was well out of the way. It was very, very out of the way. You used to sell opening doors. Oh dear. I never used to do that. I'll tell you what there was, though, on my realm in Classic. There was some guy, I wish I could remember his name, was a mage. And he used to sell, I don't suppose this was unusual, but he used to sell portals to various places. But he used to sell it like an airline. So, you know, he'd wait till there was a party worth. He would give you free food and drink. That was part of the deal. It was such and such airlines will be flying to destination of your choice, blah, blah, blah. And you'd have to bring the rune as well, pay him a gold. And if you could get several people who wanted to go to the same place, he'd get you all in, make you all pay a gold. You know, he used to make money that way. Ah, thank you, Tongue. But But yes, it would just be nostalgia if I went back. There's a lot of things. I mean, there were a lot of features of it I liked that they've removed, and I wish they hadn't. But at the same time, I understand why some of them were removed. The only change I don't understand was I understand, I just don't appreciate, was them revamping all the 1 to 60 content. I didn't like that. I would have minded less, ironically, if they'd have done that to the 60-70 content. Because I didn't think the levelling was all that great in TBC, if I'm honest. I didn't think it were good. Apart from Nagrand. But if I'm honest, I think the main reason I like Nagrand in TBC content is because by the time I got there, I was so disenchanted with the levelling. I didn't like it. I was just pleased that we could go to a zone where you could find a group of people who said, kill everything that moves and then come back. And that's what I did. I went out there, killed everything, went back. They said, right, now kill more things that move. And I just did that. Yeah, selling lockpicking chests was another common one. Although it was a pain in the arse to level your lockpicking up, though. I remember having to do that. I remember having to go to Desolus, which is my least favourite zone, and having to swim all those areas to do the boxes at one bit. Because where was the first bit? The first bit for me, I think, was it Lakeshire or something? Red Ridge Mountains, I think, was the first place. Then Wetlands. Can't remember. But then there's one point when you had to go to Desolus. Hi, Cloud. As a Warlock main, you hated when they got rid of Have Group Will Travel. Why? People would have stopped bothering you. That was hellish. Because that's another thing the Warlocks had to do during the break, was go out and farm soul shards. But they needed help, so I used to, be nice to them. I would go out and help and beat up mobs for them so they could get their soul shards. So, I mean, those sort of things were not good. Having to carry arrows with you and reagents and bloody Warlocks farming soul shards. And mages having to make the water, even after they did the Diamol quest, having to make all that water for everyone. They didn't need that. That was just rubbish. Hi, Demi Greek. How's it going on YouTube so far? From your point of view, it's going very well, I think. Everyone's saying it works well. From my point of view, it's a nightmare, because it's not working well from my point of view. But hopefully, I've copied down the stream link to this one at least. So if this doesn't work, I can at least email that person back and say, look, here's the latest one. This is also not working. Fix, please. WoW has lost its RPG. To a certain extent. It is still a role-playing game. It's just changed in its nature. You don't like that they completely got rid of difficult and meaningful quest chains. I mean, there's more quest chains linked to raids now, but obviously how difficult they are depends on the difficulty of the raid you do. Hi, Michael. You'd never have seen me live if not for YouTube. Well, the same is true, because I can see at the moment there's 109 people viewing, and I noticed someone put a like on it before I'd even started, not even done anything. But yeah, on Twitch, on a good night, we'll get like 40. So, I mean, this is the reason I've decided to switch. It's not because I don't like Twitch. Twitch does everything I require of it. It works perfectly well. It's just that people are not going to happen upon it in the same. So I can only sort of let people know I'm doing it. Whereas on YouTube, people might happen upon it. And of course, YouTube is my major platform. That's the one I use. I've got to work, feel like. Oh, well. Do I prefer savage Warhammer style orcs or the post-thrall tree-hugging variety? I'm not keen on tree-hugging variety. I don't really... Like, the main issue, the main beef Night Elves had with orcs in the first place was them cutting down trees. Although I would always argue that Night Elves are a bit of a they're hypocrites when it comes to trees. Because in Warcraft 3, At least when the orcs cut down trees, they used the lumber. Night elves, you got lumber for free with the wisps. No problem with lumber. But the problem is, to expand your base and to create channels, you had to destroy trees with a bolt thrower. So you used to destroy trees and just let them rot as a night elf. It was wasteful of trees. You weren't even using it. YouTube sends the link when you start. Oh, there you go. I mean, technically Twitch can do the same thing because it sends you an email. But yeah, the YouTube, because I'm on YouTube anyway, it sort of makes more sense to do it on YouTube. Did they release... Yes, apparently the Three Sisters comic is now out. I only read the preview of it. Although it's still not on Battle.net. But someone was saying it's been released. I'd expect it today. I think it's due today. But yeah, this thing here is just the... I just got that from the preview that I was reading before we went live. You ate trees with tree buildings to get HP. Yes. Well, it was... I suppose it was technically cannibalism. I'm not sure that the tree people, like the Guardians, are supposed to be actual trees. I think they're supposed to just look like trees. So I'm not sure why YouTube is becoming popular compared to... Is it becoming popular? I thought YouTube was very popular even a year ago. I didn't know YouTube. I heard something about... Some stat about YouTube becoming the most popular mobile platform now, where it wasn't last year. But that's specifically for mobiles. Am I going to go retting Classic? I'm not going to play Classic that much. But obviously when I do, I will play a Paladin. And I'm not going to be silly enough to at least level as anything but ret. They need to do more with Valeria. She's the only sensible sister. What's wrong with Illyria? Illyria's perfectly sensible. I mean, Sylvanas is sensible in her way. She's just a bit morally gone wrong now. Oh, streaming. Well, because they didn't have streaming a year. Well, they did, but it was very early days. The problem is, like, from a gamer's point of view, like, YouTube streaming just for doing discussions like this, absolutely fine for it, probably, except it doesn't seem to be working terribly well for me. But for streaming gaming, they just don't get it. YouTube do not get it. It's better to stream gaming on Twitch than it is on YouTube. You can get more viewers on YouTube, this is true. But you also have more restrictions. So there's certain things you just can't do. Like, for example, take Preach, for example. Was he tweeting about something? He was basically saying a load of his content's just permanently demonetized. Which he must have done something stupid to get that. Because there's nothing edgy about his content. There's nothing that would attract demonetization. So he must just be too sweary on it. Also, I really don't know what he's doing to get his... Well, he says his channel's blacklisted. I assume what he means is he got strikes against it. And therefore, it's not in good standing. But he must have just done something really dozy. Because none of his content, if I did the same stuff, would get demonetized. I haven't been demonetized for like... Well, actually, briefly. The mailbox on Sunday was briefly demonetized. But I noticed it was fine again an hour later. That might have just been... I don't know what that was. There's nothing about Drama Time that would... I haven't watched it in a long time. I used to watch it, and then it turned into what was clearly fiction. People used to write what was clearly made up shit and send that in. And it was all the same shit as well, so I stopped watching it then. But there was nothing about Drama Time that would do it. I really don't see what's in there. Unless he's fundamentally changed how he does it. Web show, yeah, okay. I mean, this was my reluctance to do live stuff on YouTube but this is fairly well controlled. Yeah, but even then, There's nothing about his web show content that is dodgy. So it can only be his language or behaviour or something, which he could easily modify without losing any integrity. So I don't really understand. You don't have to do much to end up on a YouTube demonetization list. But I don't see it because I don't understand. Like, what will he have done to have been demonetized? I don't get it. Yeah, YouTube was auto demonetizing a lot of them quite a while when it was first, because YouTube had to react. They were being threatened left, right, and centre. They were coming under proper attack. They were getting vilified in the press. They had to do something, and they had to do it quickly. Now, it wasn't good, and it wasn't fair on the creators, but you could understand why YouTube did it. But that algorithm has got a lot better now, and I have not been demonetized in 2018. We're like halfway through now, and I haven't had any issues. So it's got a lot better. And even before, like, all you had to do as a big, because you can understand it, like, even big content creators get most of their views and therefore revenue in the first couple of days. In the first week, you'll certainly get the book, but even in the first couple of days, that's when it's crucial. And if it's demonetized for those 2 days, you know, you're buggered. But unless it's live stuff, you can easily, oh my God, oh, another bloody one. You can easily, what was I saying now? Yeah, you just put the video on, right? And you don't list it. You don't make it public. You just put it on there. Wait an hour or so. The algorithm will go, oh, it's a bit dodgy, this. So then you go review it. Because if you're a small channel, they say you have to have 1,000 views before they review it. So you're buggered. But for a bigger, even my size channel, they would do it without 1,000. So you could have no views. They will still review it. Because you make money for them. So, and they make way more money than I do. So they could easily have just done that, put the video out 2 days ahead of when they wanted to, got it reviewed in that time, so that when they release it, it's all fine. It's done. No problem. So the bigger YouTubers had no excuse, even in its worst days, for being demonetized. Look at it this way. They demonetized Lost Codex, which is purely a lore channel, doesn't even swear. But why? Why would they? Why not? Why wasn't I being demonetized and they were? There must have been something daft about it. I discuss WoW lore at times. Yeah, but then all you do is what I say. If it's a lore video, like a breaking news video, you can't just say, oh yeah, it'll be fine in 2 days. A lore video, comments can have an effect, yes. That is why I say, like, if I look at my comments, there's 3 tabs of comments. There's comments, there's, what's it called now? Shit, I can't remember. Let's have a look. But basically, there's 1 tab for dodgy comments and 1 for potential spam. Held for review, right? I generally, sometimes I look through them. But generally speaking, if I, you know, if it's got bad language or inappropriate words, it puts it in there. I generally do not okay those, even if I'm fine with it, unless I look at it and go, no, there's no issue with that. Because yes, comments can do it as well. But as I say, if the algorithm has a problem with the comment, it will put it into the held review thing. So it won't affect your video unless you give it the okay. So the obvious solution is to not give it the okay. The nature of my channel may well attract more mature viewers, maybe, yes. But again, what I'm saying is those comments go into the review thing. So unless the content creator is passing them, you know, and saying, no, put it in, that's fine. And if they do that, they've only got themselves to blame. That shouldn't have an effect. Because YouTube is helping you out by filtering them. You'll never figure out what YouTube are doing exactly because, yeah, absolutely, yeah. That's why it's a surprise. Whenever they whenever they admit to something. Like, for example, this shocks the hell out of everyone. It's quite recent. It was only a couple of months ago, wasn't it? So, like, you can subscribe to a channel. Now, at one time, I thought subscribing to a channel meant getting notifications when someone from that channel posted something, but that's not true. But then you have an extra thing, don't you? By the subscribe button, which of course everyone should push right now if you haven't already, there's like a bell, isn't there? And the bell is for want notifications. So you subscribe to someone and you've clicked the bell. Well, surely I now get notifications, but YouTube said no. So what? Even pressing the bell doesn't give you notifications except on an RNG basis. It's like really small chance to get any notifications then. And then recently they said they're doing something else as well. They're changing something else. So when they're suggesting videos, they used to suggest latest content. Now they don't. They can suggest things out of chronological order just based on what they think you want to watch. Because from YouTube's point of view, it's all about that watch time. They don't care about views per se. You know, what they care about is how long are you spending watching YouTube. All there is to it. Age of Sigma 2nd edition now today. Yeah, my friend from work had told me about it. The problem is, as I actually sent a reply back to him saying, yeah, that's great. Unfortunately, your delivery system is shit. And he said, hey, I just paint them. He says, I just do the illustrations, not my fault. But yeah, so I've no confidence that they'll even... So if I advance order the book, which I will do. In fact, you've just reminded me I was going to do that now. They probably won't even get it to me on the release day. You have to do some serious digging on YouTube to find the new videos. Yeah, because as I say, they oh crap, where's it gone? Where's the thing? Where's the thing? YouTube chat videos. Right. So new video. The only ones that get regularly pushed to me are the Preach and Taliesin. Yeah, I'm yeah, what gets for me? Hold on, what do I get? Let's have a look in my feed. So, actually, it's recommending my own video. That's nice. Boogie? Yeah, I usually get Boogie's ones. I watch his stuff quite a lot. In terms of World of Warcraft, Fat Boss. Even though I haven't watched a Fat Boss video for a while, they're on there. Fever. Soul So Breezy. Preach. Final Boss. I haven't got a Taliesin and Evertal one showing. Signs of Killarney. That I'm not watching that bloody video. Oh my god. That's just horrendous clickbait. Not clicking that one. Nobble. Got a Nobble one there. Chinglish TV. He doesn't do YouTube very much. I don't know why that's showing. Cranius. That's another one from a blast from the past. Yeah, quite a lot. When you mentioned viewer comments, you're referring to the comments from the live stream, less so the follow-up comments. Oh, well, those ones. I think unless YouTube are completely ridiculous, they know that we can't do a lot about those. We can, like, as I've already had to do twice tonight, which, again, like, I hardly ever have to do this on Twitch. Maybe you expect to have to do more of it on YouTube. So I've had to ban people. Well, report them. I assume it does the same thing. But there's not a lot I can do otherwise. Seems that the best approach is to have a real life job and do YouTube as a hobby. It works for me. Because the problem, yeah, that's the problem. Like, the content I do, I'm not going to hype anything that doesn't warrant hyping. I'm not going to try and, you know, suck people in, even though I've been accused of it a few times. Have I ever seen the long writer series about does Blizzard hate paladins from... No. I'm not interested in these ones. Have Blizzard got it against or got it for a particular class or something like that? Because it's never true. Even when, you know, they keep getting a class wrong, I don't believe they've actually got anything in for it. I did a short video last week narrating a short transcript from Lord of the Rings. I have the other. I have the other one ready to go on that one, Fraser. I have the next in the series. The idea is to bring one out each week. I was going to bring it out yesterday because it was a week later than the last one, but I had a video out yesterday, and so in order to try and not load up too many videos in one day, then not have anything for a while, so I'm bringing that one out tomorrow. I'm going to upload it tonight and schedule it for tomorrow, and then the next Warhammer one should be on Thursday. And then we'll decide if I can bother to do one for Friday. That's the problem with streaming at the moment. Hang on, what have I looked? And why Preacher's where he is. He presents general WoW videos. Yeah, well, it has a mix, but obviously it's more from a Raider's point of view. The Ret Paladin is just the one that's there every week, that's all. Because obviously I'm a Ret Paladin. And also, I don't really like the idea of duplicating what other people do. And there's no one on YouTube does any decent and accurate rep videos really on a regular basis. So that's why I do those. If there was someone else doing them, I wouldn't go to the... Because the time it takes to do them as well. Almost no video is worth the time, like financially. I do them because there are no others. So if there were others, I wouldn't actually waste my time doing it. Hi, Skylark. I am doing well, thank you. I did play Warhammer Online, not all the way through. I did, obviously, as a Warhammer fan, I got it. I advanced ordered it. I didn't play any beta or anything like that, though. So I played it when it came out. It was bugged to hell. And I thought, no. So I stopped. Then I quit World of Warcraft. Started to play a little bit of Lord of the Rings Online. Then, a few months later, I started playing Warhammer Online. So then I was playing Warhammer Online quite a bit. Then my graphics card exploded. I couldn't afford a good quality one, so I got a cheap one. And then that's when I discovered Warhammer Online does not run very well on a cheap graphics card. And basically, it didn't run at all. So that's when I went back to WoW, just on a casual basis. And then later on, I heard you could play as Skaven, so I was, I want to get back into it. Couldn't find my login details. Tried to, get it via email, stuff like that. Couldn't get it because I had the advanced orders. I had like rewards in it that I wanted. I didn't just want to make a new account. Didn't get anywhere because, of course, EA. And by the time I'd got somewhere, I found out the game had been scrapped anyway. So, but I did play it. And I enjoyed it as well. It was like, because before I played Warhammer Online, I used to think that I didn't enjoy PvP in MMOs. I thought maybe there's just something about MMOs and PvP that doesn't quite work. But then I played Warhammer Online. I thought, actually, no, PvP can be fun. And I did. I joined a guild and everything. I actually used to do serious PvP. Savix isn't super accurate though. He tries. I'm not saying he doesn't put the effort in, but he doesn't get the latest information. Like, he doesn't really talk to people. He just does what seems apparent, which is the problem with that. Now you say I mained a warrior priest. Initially I did, but then I switched faction and did a disciple of Cain, which is much the same thing, only more stabby. Well, the levelling up, so you had two sets of levels. You had your PvE levels, which was up to 40. That was okay anyway, that was all right. But then the main levelling was your renown rank. That was the main thing. I don't suppose I'll have any screenshots still. Did I archive any? No. I think there's still some on my old computer. I think I've still got some screenshots somewhere. I need to find them. There was a lot of things that were bad about it, yeah. Certain concepts were quite good, but a lot of the actual end result was poor. That's what I meant. Like I only played it for a couple of hours before thinking, no, I'm not playing this. When it first came out, and you know, for PvE it was terrible. The dungeons were pretty terrible, you know. But the PvP was good. Do I still think of my channel as class specific? No, I don't think it's class specific at all. It has guides on a class, which, you know, a lot of general ones don't, because a class guide, to do it properly, takes a lot of effort. And, you know, but I guarantee, I'm foolish to do it, because some weeks I think, what am I going to even talk about? Like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about this Saturday for the Ret vlog this week, but I guarantee one Ret Paladin video a week. But I do more than one WoW video a week, so by definition, you know, the Ret videos are in the minority. It's just that it's more niche, because discussing things about WoW, other people do it. I obviously have my own views. The only real scoop I've had in the last year, and that was only because a viewer told me, was being the first one by a couple of months to say that there'd be no tier gear in BfA. So everything else is sort of technically on the same topics that other people do. I just add my own spin to it. Although no one else had the balls to do a video on gnomes being removed from the game. That ended up doing quite well, actually. Well, I'll tell you what Warhammer Online did have that Blizzard adopted later on. I'm not saying necessarily directly from Warhammer Online. It had public quests, which we call world quests. And it also had objectives on the map. So you could open up your map and see, oh, for that quest I go here. Which wasn't in World of Warcraft at the time. They then put it in later on. Sorry, have I missed something? But yeah, oh yeah. Obviously, when I talk about anything really gamer, I do come at it from the point of view of a Mythic Raider. One thing you wish WoW stole from Warhammer was the lore encyclopedia. Yeah, that was a nice feature as well. The problem with Blizzard doing it, and why they could never do it, is because they keep changing it. And it would be a bit obvious, even though they could update the lore encyclopedia, it would be quite clear they're updating it. And it just shines a spotlight on the fact that they keep changing their own bloody story. It's quite funny. When I did that video on the Warcraft movie auction props. So someone said, and they weren't wrong. So they said about the film not being canon, so it didn't really add anything to the Warcraft story, which is a fair comment. But at the same time, I couldn't help thinking when I read that comment, but even the game isn't canon because they keep changing it. Warcraft 1 isn't canon anymore. They've changed it all. The books that were written about Warcraft 1 aren't canon, because that's changed as well now. Oh yeah, my top 5 videos. What are they now? Let's have a look. So Lord of the Rings Online, yeah. The Holy Light animation. I know it's mad, isn't it? So I do a video on the new animation for Holy Light, and it's at the moment got 90,000 views. I do a video on the new animation for Templar's Verdict, a Retribution Paladin ability. It gets about 3,000 views. Patch 7.2 first day priorities. I mean, that's, you know, that's a sort of guide, yeah. Limit getting banned again. That's another discussion video. And then the gnome removal one. So yeah, there's no pattern. There's no rhyme or reason for it, exactly. There are certain videos I know would do well that I don't do. But in terms of ones that I do, yeah, you can never predict when it's going to go well or not. The only ones I ever hope go well are the guides that I put a lot of work into. Like that 7.2 first priorities one. Although I'd done the PTR, and you could argue that I'd spent some time, you know, getting my research done, the actual video took me an afternoon, and it ended up making me. Shall I dare to have a look how much it made me? Let's have a look at the old money. The new TV animation looks way better. I think it looks terrible. Unless they've changed it again and I haven't seen it. Let's see now. What do I want? Lifetime. So the Lord of the Rings one, oh, it didn't make that much actually. $127. Which is still more than most of my videos make. Life is RNG. Well, indeed, yes. Yes. One day I shall win the lottery. I don't know. I don't understand why that's not happened yet, quite frankly. But, you know, I've done everything right. But, you know, it is what it is. But, I mean, animations are the sort of things that obviously the art, that's a different team doing those. You know, there could still be quite a few still in the pipeline to do. You miss holy animations. The rep PvP talent's barely useful in war mode. Well, I can't really speak for that because I don't really intend to do it. Well, Lord of the Rings Online, yes, indeed. I mean, that's the other issue of it. It's got a lot of very nice features. It's set in a true to the books Tolkien world. So Middle-earth is the Middle-earth of the books, which is good. However, there are certain things about the game that people keep describing it as being dated, which they can have the luxury of calling it dated now. But the fact is, when it was new, I thought it was not very modern, even when it was new. But the actual MMO features in it, it's got some very nice ones. You wish they would give us a nice animation for Exorcism and replace Blade of Wrath. I mean, the reason at the moment where I don't think there's any mileage in that is just because Exorcism would be a holy damage ability, whereas Blade of Wrath is physical. And I think, because I couldn't understand why they got rid of Exorcism and replaced it with Blade of Wrath, because they could have just, you know, changed Exorcism to do exactly what Blade of Wrath does. And I think the only answer I can come to, the only conclusion I can come to is they wanted a powerful damage dealing ability that did physical damage. It just then confused me that then they produced a version called Divine Hammers which does spell damage. Although that is going as well now. TBC, Holy Light. Well, oh yeah, well, yeah. Flash of Light much more often used, as has always been the case. I mean, it used to be the case that Flash of Light used to be the weak heal as well, and it was still used more because you could spam it all the time. What item would I have bid on from the WoW movie auction if I had some notice? I don't think I could have stretched the mailbox. That would have, because you've also got to bear in mind that those prices weren't just the prices you would pay. That would also, you'd also have to pay on top of it auction fees and postage. I'm guessing the auction was held in America. I don't know that, but or maybe New Zealand because wetter. I don't know, but I don't think it was held down the street. So I'd also have to pay international postage on it. Maybe one of the shields. I think after the mailbox, the items I would most like to have that I potentially could have saved up for would have been either the Stormwind or the Lordaeron shield. I might have had to think about the Horde banner. Maybe the Horde banner. The good one. There were a few Horde banners. Most of them were crap. But the good one. You wish they'd have left Warlock's shadow box animation. I quite like the Rubik's Cube. I do like that. It wouldn't be as strong, but they could just not make it with scale with mastery. It would be very poor. If they're going to say that the mastery improves, you know, boosts the holy damage of holy damage abilities, they shouldn't really exclude any abilities from that. It makes it unnecessarily messy. Do I think they'll leave Danasis and Undercity rule forever? I think it all depends on how long they want to keep World of Warcraft going. I think if they want to keep World of Warcraft going for another few expansions, then I think it makes sense, maybe even in the following expansion, to do something with that area. Certainly Lordaeron. I can't see Lordaeron remaining as a pile of bricks if they see WoW as having a long-term future. But if they don't see it as having a long-term future, then they can easily just leave it as it is. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what they do in the following expansion. And who knows where that would be. I mean, location. At the moment, location becomes the head scratcher. Because I don't like the idea of just disappearing off to another world. I mean, so far we've only really disappeared off, for an expansion at any rate, to Draenor in 2 different versions. I mean, in theory, we could go to others because we can open portals. But it just wouldn't seem like World of Warcraft, I think, is really all to do with Azeroth, really. Do I think in a future expansion they'll add additional specs to existing classes? No. I think they already regret having as many specs as there are. I think, yeah, and it's understandable. I think, you know, the current development team is not the original development team, and I imagine they resent a certain amount of what they would consider mess that they have inherited. And I think excessive numbers, particularly pure DPS specs, you know, like mages, rogues having 3 specs, I think is a pain in the arse for them. How many world trees are left now? Well, I mean, the Hydril is still supposed to be sort of intact, isn't it? I don't know. I didn't really play Cataclysm, but I'm pretty sure we're still okay there. Sort of. And I don't know whether they would plant another one. You always thought they should have done political expansions. I think they get very clumsy when they try and be political with their storylines. Like the new Westfall is an abomination. It's just clumsy political, you know, allegory. Kalia retakes Lordaeron. Forsaken takes Stratholme for their main city. Well, the point is they want a whole continent for the Alliance and an entire continent for the Horde. Obviously, the Blood Elves and Draenei still make a mess of it, but although the Draenei are on islands, you could argue that that's not too bad. Blood Elves make a mess of the Eastern Kingdoms, though. Now, for what reason they want an Alliance continent and a Horde continent, I cannot imagine. I feared naval combat. That's what I feared. As soon as it became clear that Kul Tiras was going to appear, I feared actual naval gameplay, like in Warcraft 2, which I did not enjoy. You're simply tired of human and orc-driven storylines, but this is the problem. I've always had this particular problem with World of Warcraft. It doesn't push the story; it just harks back to older things. And whenever you sort of say anything like this, they always just say as their excuse, "Oh, but you know, Warcraft 1, orcs versus humans." Demon Hunters could have had a 3rd spec. They could have done, but I think Demon Hunters, for me, was not proof, but a bit of an indicator that they don't appreciate lots of specs. You know, I think if they could completely redesign everything, it wouldn't surprise me if they just looked at it and went, look, 1 spec per role. Maybe 2 if you only played 1 role, and that was it. So Demon Hunters didn't need a 3rd spec, I think it's the important point. Unless it was going to be a range spec. If they wanted to make them like a range spec, okay. You wonder if they'll wrap up the WoW story with a full peace treaty and holding hands. What, like in Warhammer? I'm going to have to find... I need to find on like eBay or something the books on how they ended Warhammer. But from what I've heard so far, that seems to be how that ended. Everyone just made up, shook hands and kissed, and then the world blew up. We all know BfA geochanges will not remain. We don't know anything. Because, as I say, they must have a long-term plan for Warcraft, but I don't know what it is. And I don't know if they see the end of World of Warcraft in sight. Because they might. I think that the fact that they've killed off the Legion, effectively, and they might, if in the next expansion they basically finish off Old Gods, then that to me will mean they are wrapping stories up for something else. You know, it seems to me that they're rushing things to conclusions. Could you imagine if Azeroth was basically destroyed a bit like Draenor, and the reason they wanted Horde on one continent and Alliance on the other is so that would be two different chunks of rock orbiting, like in another sort of shattered world, but a shattered world of Azeroth, with the Azeroth world soul forming an actual Titan. Even after a while, there's no reason why they couldn't make more games that aren't MMOs. No, I mean, the next Warcraft game might not be an MMO. It could be a completely different type of game. My worry was that it might be a mobile game. I hope that's not true, because I would refuse to play it. Or a console game, same thing. Yeah, it'd be quite... Yeah, it wouldn't be straightforward to come up with a Demon Hunter. I mean, the only thing I could think of is something along the lines of the Demon Hunter in Diablo. You know, dual-wielding crossbows. Something like that. Maybe they could make a full-blown single-player Warcraft RPG. It's possible. The thing is that you have this bit of a problem with gaming, like single-player RPGs at the moment, because the industry as a whole seems to think that they've had their day. And yet, you still have not many titles, because again, the industry seems to think they're done in the past. But you do have single RPG titles that come out and are very popular. You know, like Witcher, for example, and you know, that latest nonsense on the console. But is it that they're really popular just because actually there is a market for single-player RPGs? Or is it because there are so few single-player RPGs that the dedicated single-player RPG fans all flock to that one title because it's that or nothing, pretty much, or that there isn't much coming out? So I don't know. It might be that the industry is not actually wrong, but that there's enough of a market to support a small number of them. Maybe like MMOs itself. You know, and I notice Lazy Peon was saying with that Bless Online fiasco, he said the fact that sold really well, he said, proves that there's a load of players who are desperately looking for a really good MMO. But it doesn't necessarily. It might just prove that there's a load of players who are desperately looking for what they think is a good MMO, which they will never find because they're not realistic about their expectations. It might just be that you have people who go from MMO to MMO to MMO, and they find faults with everyone they come across. I'm not saying there weren't faults to find with Bless Online, but, you know, they find fault with all of them, so they will always get the new MMO because they're just desperate, you know, that it's the one for them. But maybe there is no one for them. Demon Hunters would certainly not want another melee spec. Like, having exactly the same role for two different specs in the same class is just trouble for no real benefit. As I say, the fact that Demon Hunters only had two specs just tells me, without being proof, but tells me that they do not appreciate multiple specs. They just know they can't get rid of specs. But when they make a new class, they're not going to give them loads of specs. Unless it's for different roles. Like monks, they have a spec, but there's 3 different roles represented by those specs. The successful ones are huge and made by studios that keep creative control. Yeah, the problem is it's very difficult now for the studios to end up in that situation. Because it only takes a little thing to get them in financial trouble, and then along comes EA offering to buy it off them. And then you know you're sunk. DK has 3 melee, but it's 2 melee DPS and 1 tank. But also DKs were done a long time ago. That wasn't the current development team that did DKs. The current development team did Demon Hunters. A lot of them would have done monks as well, but monks, as I say, it was 3 different roles. Skyrim has too long a product lifespan for EA to do similar things. Well, EA can only really buy studios that are struggling financially. No studio is going to accept an offer from EA unless they were financially buggered. You know, because everyone knows it's a Faustian pact when you get bought by EA. I mean, if I know it, every bloody studio must know it. Rogues don't need a bard healer spec. Rogue players wouldn't want that. The only reason people play rogues is because it's a guaranteed raid spot, and they just need to stab things a lot. Occasionally stand in a puddle and press your cloak. Ah, yeah, well, if they change some roles, yeah, Frost Mage as a tank, yeah, that might be okay. I always thought Demonology Warlock as a tank might work as well. Rogues could have a dual-wield pistol spec. Pistols don't really have a very long range. They might work better with rifles. Because, I mean, one thing I think is a bit of a shame for, hunters, they are the only class that uses those weapons. So maybe if you were going to open out classes to having range specs, maybe they should use some hunter weapons. Maybe rogues could use bows and guns. You know, be like riflemen. Well, shamans, when WoW first came out, on the website where it gave you a breakdown of the different classes, it described shaman as being tanks. You know, it said that they can tank just because they could use a shield. And they had something that could increase threat. So shamans were... I don't think they were ever used as tanks. But I don't know because I was an Alliance player. I'd be very surprised. Because you couldn't really wear anything with defense on it, could you? I mean, Paladins could, because you could wear plates. Because you could wear plate with defense on it. Outlaw is a... Well, no, a highwayman is a type of outlaw. But outlaw is also like Robin Hood and his merry men. A rogue with a rifle or bow wouldn't have to be a hunter. It could work in a totally different way. You know, with the combo points and all the rest of it. You know, people only have that association because for 13, 14 years, the only class that... Okay, warriors and rogues used to be able to use bows and guns, but that was just for pulling things. You couldn't do any damage with them. But the only class that's actually had a spec designed around the bow and the gun is the hunter. But you could easily design a spec that plays differently to a hunter, that uses a bow and a gun. It could play exactly like a rogue does play, only with ranged abilities. And it would be a different class. It just happens to use the same weapons. No reason why they couldn't do that at all. Well, warriors were superior to almost every tank because they had a taunt. That was quite useful. Plus, of course, in raids, their tier gear gave them useful bonuses for tanking. I mean, I tanked every now and then as a paladin, but getting instant threat was not straightforward because you had no taunt. And when I say getting instant threat was not straightforward, what I mean is it was not possible. Never mind waiting for 5 Sunders, you had to wait for me to build up a bit of threat with my, you know, Seal of Fury and Consecration. I think Assassination and Sub should be combined, would open them up for a range spec. The problem is, I think they would love to get rid of whole specs. I just don't think I think they know they can't get away with it. People would go mad because there are a lot of people identify more with a spec than a class sometimes. So that's why you'll get people describing themselves as subtlety rogues, not just rogues, or like fire mages. So, you know, they wouldn't get away with it. Rexar is older than WoW. He's a melee hunter. Well, there were melee hunters in WoW. They used to annoy me by nicking my gear. They just weren't very good. Had to give the pally 5 or 10 seconds before you could heal. Well, yeah, well, that's because all we had was Seal of... I mean, when we got Righteous Fury in patch 1.9, then that made it a lot better. But Seal of Fury was rubbish. Because you weren't actually generating you weren't doing very much damage while you were using it, but it was still the best way to get threat. I mean, I remember the main tanking job I had in Molten Core. There were 2. One was gathering up like the imps before the first boss and then the dogs after the first boss, because you could use Consecration, because warriors didn't have very good AoE threat, whereas paladins did, so we just went in and did that. And then on Major Domo, on one of the last elite to be killed, basically, I used to tank that off somewhere in a corner. And by the time people got round to killing it, I had loads of threat on it at that point. No one was going to pull it off me. But for a laugh one day, they got me to actually main tank the boss. It was not easy trying to keep aggro on that. When I say not easy, it was basically impossible. Fortunately, by then we were out gearing it all, so it was fine. They only did it to me for a laugh. They knew I couldn't do it. There's a friend of mine who tanked a Nixia, but again, that was, you know, everyone had to give them ages to build up threat. It was ridiculous. Again, it's when, you know, when Nixia wasn't easy on an easy farm. I don't know why they wanted to do it, really. It's so... I wouldn't have wanted to do it. Well, you say they've somehow gotten away with destroying Survival Hunter. That's because all Hunter specs were the same before. They just had different names. They had basically the same abilities, just by a different name. There was no significant difference between the way they played at all. Whereas in Legion, they all work very differently. It's just one of them happens to be melee, which some people like. Something I mentioned in a video recently, may have been touched on here. WoW for console. No, we haven't talked about that today. One of the raiders in your guild plays WoW with a controller. Yes, I have heard of such things. The craziest thing, of course, was that monk who leveled up using a dance mat. That's some extreme nonsense right there. But I don't know how straightforward it is to use a console for it, realistically. I mean, for a game that's designed to be used using a mouse, I can't think a controller is that great. Balula has at least recommended an add-on that's designed to make WoW more controller friendly in world content. Okay. Mind you, I know one add-on he was trying to make one time, Blizzard sort of vetoed it, didn't they? Holy Undead as an allied race. Who knows? Who knows anymore? If you can have holy demons, why not holy undead? Why not, indeed? You want your explosive shot and black arrow? Really just... It's like Murder of Crows. Looks like I identify as a Ret Paladin. Well, quite. Although that is to do with, as I say, the role. Like, if they made Shockadin, I would still prefer to play Ret. But I would play Shockadin on fights where melee's crowded. So I would be okay playing other DPS specs of a paladin, if that were possible. So that's more to do with role. That Adam was more of a complete game change voiceover for things. Yes. Yes, I suppose it was. But anyway, we seem to have come to the end today. I sort of can't wait to see what breaks now when I sort of finish this. So I am going to call it there. Thanks for coming on, everyone. It's been sort of quite good so far. I'm now going to see if it destroyed... I am making a copy of the video, so in theory, if it all goes wrong, I should just be able to upload the copy of this video. But we will see how it goes. And then hopefully I can have read that comic as well and see if it's any good. I have mixed feelings about it. But thanks for coming on, everyone. The next time I'll be streaming will be on Twitch because it'll be a raid, sort of. I just don't know where. Probably tomorrow. But I'll do this on YouTube for at least the next few weeks to at least try and get it working. And then I'll review it from there. So thanks very much, everyone. And I will see you later.